All right, we got everything running. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. In the queue tonight, very special guest, my big homie from way, way back who got me started podcasting. And I want to
Yes, sir.
welcome two Haps to the Haps community. H5, Hezzy Michaela. Hezzy, what's going on, brother?
Oh man, I can't call it. Just a Southern boy trying to get it done. You know. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. This is a long time coming. It seems like nowadays we only get together every, once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I saw you, you was down here. It was me, you, and Danny. We linked up. If you remember that, downtown Orlando.
Yes. We had a good night that night,
Yeah, we did. But it's been a minute.
It's been a minute, man. Oh my goodness. Who's in the Michael Bathurst? How you doing? Big shout out to Mike. Michael has Danny. I mean, excuse me. I was thinking of Danny. Hezzy, Michael has a great show. I watched the morning version of it, but he has a business show on the weekend. He has an evening show. I don't know how this guy does it. It's a great follow. Michael, I want to introduce you to Hezzy. Hezzy is new to the Haps community.
Michael, what up, my man?
Hey, you got to click the red lock so you can unlock it, Hezzy, because you got to. That's a private message. But yeah, so Michael has a great show. There's a lot of great things going on here in Haps. I got to tell you. So it's like there's the application, there's the live streaming piece of it, but then what this community, it's a community. It's a built-in community of all different types of characters, shapes, sizes, and colors, different backgrounds, religions, you name it. It's like it's a full-blown family here. Now, of course, some family members fight, some family members fuss. I like to usually, when that happens, I kind of stand off to the side and kind of watch the show, and then try to get in there before they start to mix it up or something like that. But Haps, and Michael's true, Haps is the future. I look at Haps in many different ways, more as an aggregator to pull all your social media members together from all your different platforms, and you push it out through Haps. And I think there's going to be a very, very bright future here. But speaking of bright futures, I know we spend so much time talking about the past. How have you been, man?
Man, it's been crazy, with this pandemic, as been working from home for, wow, we hit our year anniversary a couple of days ago. So it's crazy to think that, I've been actually working from home for a whole year and some change. So, dealing with that and, unfortunately, I was impacted, in my family by COVID. I recently, lost my aunt to COVID. So it's been a very challenging year, to say the least.
And once again, my condolences. I know you and I had spoke about this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because a lot of people, Hezzy, for some reason, everything within the last 4 years has been politicized. And something like this, stuff like this is serious. And to sit here and go back and forth, and now, even sometimes, even with Haps, well, not so much with Haps, but more on the lines of when I'm on other social media channels, you're sitting there and people are going back and forth whether or not they're going to take the vaccine. Previously to that is whether or not they're going to wear a mask. Previously to that is this for real? Is this a hoax? Is this something, it's how far have we fallen, Hez?
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. People are really more um, dealing with their own emotions and living in their own bubble version of reality, and they're not really either adept or even maybe, even care about science and you know, science is not something that's political. We could say the same thing about measles and mumps and all of these the flu, smallpox, all of these diseases that were very impactful on our society that were able to be mitigated because of vaccine. So there is some skepticism to a certain on both sides of the house and an extent, but the level of liberals or conservatives is across the spectrum, So it is a little concerning because for us to be able to get back to those normal times where we're going to football games and baseball games and hanging out with our families, we're all going to really have to get in this and be together on it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So with sports and COVID, we hit the 1 year anniversary, and so many different people have commented on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna stop and give a big shout out to Tony D. Tony D, thank you for stopping through. Tony D is a member of the community. Tony, want to let you know, Hezi, this is his first time streaming on Haps. So get the word out. You can follow him at Chala #1. So we get to the point of sports and COVID. Everyone remembers where they were in regards with the NBA, when games and everything, the full stoppage happened. And then when sports were restarted, like, 2 months or so later, the no fans, some leagues not coming back, some leagues canceling, from college to the pros. How is your viewing now of sports? Is it back to where it was before, where it was part of kind of like your relief to get away from politics and everything else? Or have you had a huge problem with watching sports with the diminished crowds?
That's a great question, man. I would say it is weird, to me, watching games, whether it's basketball or football or what have you, hockey, without seeing fans there. I mean, now some fans are starting to come back into the stadiums a little bit at a time. Um, but it's almost impossible for us to, watch sports without it being somewhat politicized because of the COVID. But one thing I can say is that, shout out #1 to the NBA. I think the NBA really kind of was a trailblazer with regards to protecting their players and trying to, keep the fans protected and also trying to create an experience for the fans through, I guess that was Microsoft Teams, where they had, virtual fans kind of like watching the game at home and stuff like that, and they were broadcasting the fans, on the screen when they were doing the bubble. But as I recall, they didn't really have too many instances of COVID infection. So NBA really blazed the trail, and the NFL wasn't too bad. Baseball really kind of had some some hiccups.
They dropped the ball.
Yeah,
they dropped the ball.
Hiccups. But overall, just to answer your question, I mean, it's definitely been different watching sports. But I am glad that we do have that, because at least that gives us some kind of escapism.
Yeah, it's true. I would say the whole bubble, the whole concept of the bubble was great for the NBA. I think in a close second was NHL.
Yep.
Totally saying, hey, we're going to handle this in Canada And that's that. And I like kind of like also what the NHL is doing this season. All the Canadian teams are staying in Canada, and they have the matchups happening out there. All the teams within the states are staying here because of course, we have an issue. Even with the vaccine, we have an issue.
Yeah.
So NHL handled it the second best. Coming in third was the NFL with. I think they created a new business model. Truthfully, by opening and just to let you know, we had a conversation last week with Bucko Bruce.
Okay.
And I said to him, the legendary Bucko Bruce, and I said to him that I expect us to see more single windows opening in the future, meaning there's going to be a game on a Tuesday night because that opens up the in-game betting experience. He pushed back. He said, no, I doubt it. I said, if you have all these different sports leagues and how everyone has embraced in-game betting, and you can have these single windows where, okay, on Friday night, there's going to be an NFL game at 7:00. It's must-see TV. It's always been must-see TV. But when you give it a single window, it makes it even more interesting. So, not so bold prediction. The 1:00 games, the glut of 1:00 games and 4:00 games, I think it's going to come to an end with the next media deal that's that's happening now. Like this upcoming season is the last season of it. I think what COVID has done is open up a different business model for the NFL. The MLB, lastly, I'll say this much. Fumbled not only fumbled, they struck out because MLB and MLBPA can never get on the same accord. It seems like they're always working against each other. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Any thoughts from that? Well, better yet, what's your thoughts on the NFL and kind of coming home on a Tuesday and seeing a game at 6:00 at night? Were you game for it, or were you not?
Well, this is the NFL, man. That's the big dog. So I don't care what night it is. The NFL is going to dominate the night, So if it's NBA on that same night, you're going to be most likely, checking out that football game at least a little bit. I was going to say, though, it definitely made it interesting. And I think to your point, they learned some things, or they're learning things, about those different nights where they had to adjust due to COVID, and they may bring something, similar. The other thing that I was thinking while you were, breaking it down was that it used to be, about TV channels, NBC, CBS, Fox, but now Amazon is making a push. And, I watched a few football games on Amazon Prime. So I'm sure when that new TV deal, Amazon is definitely going to make a push to get some of that airtime.
And truer words couldn't have been spoken. I don't know. So, leading into last season, there was a lot of discussion about social justice issues. And I know you and we've been friends for many, many years. There was a few years ago, you had kind of put football aside. There was a sense that from me speaking with you, I guess you had felt at the time the NFL wasn't doing what it needed to do in regards to social justice. With this last season, do you feel like they've made the necessary changes?
They definitely. Well, let me just say this. It's kind of like a two-part answer. Roger Goodell, I feel like did everything in his power to really kind of raise awareness and try to get the players a platform where they can kind of speak on issues that they care about. The NBA is very good about that, letting their players just kind of speak freely. NFL not so much. You get fined, suspended, all of that kind of stuff. So on Roger Goodell's part, I would say, even though he always gets booed when he walks out for the draft, he he definitely, did his thing. The owners, they they were okay in my opinion. I wasn't really a big fan of the, lift every voice and sing, before the game. That's just me personally. I just
Okay.
would rather see, more stuff happening in the communities and just, allowing the players to kind of, speak their minds when they wanted to speak their minds. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
So, but Hez, tell me this much: with a product that's making what $12 billion in revenue a year, these billionaires own and control this league.
Mm.
I'd like to see how we're gonna, how this is going to happen. I would say 5 years down the line, if we continue down this path versus if they take a few steps backwards. So I'm gonna hang back from making a comment because I'm gonna take next 2 seasons, and observe and just see. Okay, is it a little step, another step forward, or not? Want to segue?
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Before you segue, I do have one thing though. I had to say to myself, with all of the push that they were making with the players, Roger Goodell kind of letting them have their freedom. I was like, man, Colin Kaepernick's got to be sitting back somewhere. Like, man, you got to be kidding me, man. I died on this hill and I don't got no job.
Yes, sir. So, Hez, I know you're big into pop culture. When we used to do barbershop sports, there was always pop culture weaved in with sports. A little comedy and a lot of different serious topics. I don't watch this stuff, so things haven't changed. We might have been friends for many, many years, but I didn't watch the Grammys before, and I didn't watch them now. So, did I miss anything, or did you watch the Grammys this past Sunday night?
I think in these in this day and age, even though I am still pop culture, I've become more like yourself, brother, because I didn't watch the Grammys. I really didn't have any interest in them. So I really don't have any comments on the Grammys because it's really not a big deal for me anymore.
So what has changed so that it's no longer a big deal? Is it just to the fact that the type of music that's being put out isn't you aren't interested in, or you basically create your own playlist and keep it moving? What is it?
Yeah, I think that the quality of music overall, when you think about the Grammys, you're talking about multiple genres, but across the spectrum, the quality of music, in my opinion, is nowhere near what it used to be, and what's considered great or good, in my opinion, is like really, have you seen Prince? Have you seen Phil Collins, or some of these other folks, these real legends, Stevie Wonder, and like I named some older artists, but if you kind of flash forward late '90s, early 2000s, some of those artists, all that stuff has really kind of been pushed to the background, and now most of the sound that you hear is electronic, auto tunes. There's not a whole lot of. Basically, you don't really have to be that talented to be famous and popular, right? So that's really kind of tainted my view of the Oscars. I mean, not the Oscars, but the Grammys.
Okay. So it's just the fact that it's auto tune, the fact that there's very little creativity, the fact that I don't know. It's like I can't remember the last album that dropped that I was kind of like, oh, I really need to. I can't wait to download this album. I don't know if it started as when music went digital, and I know we sound like a bunch of dinosaurs, but that's where I kind of feel. I kind of feel like when music went digital, when all the box stores that we used to go to, that we used to enjoy to go to, and we would show up on a Tuesday because a new album was dropping, like that whole experience, gone with the wind.
And that whole Sam Goody's, Tower Records, sitting in there for hours going through CDs and
yes,
listening to samples and looking at the artwork in the CD jacket, that's gone.
It's gone. And I just want to know, like, is it more? Are they getting more money now with it being digital versus when you used to have a physical copy? What do you think?
I know they have a lot of artists that are opposed to digital because they don't have as much control. I know a lot of artists have a problem with Spotify because they really don't get their just due. So some of them switch either exclusively to Apple or Apple Music or they had Tidal, but I think recently they Jay-Z sold Tidal to somebody else. So I don't know what's going on with that. But that being said, you do have these artists that like do a SoundCloud, and they have a SoundCloud page, and then it catches on, and next thing you know they're doing a thing. So the flip side of it is, artists don't have to necessarily go to a record company and beg for a record deal anymore, because they can just do their music and go to the studio and just pump it out and put it on the internet, and if it catches on, it catches on. So it's like a double-edged sword.
We got John Ardmore saying not all songs are auto-tuned, but I've also tuned out the Grammys. John, we're with you. We're with you on that. Man.
They still got a few handful of folks out there doing that thing. Matter of fact, real quick thing before we go to the next thing, there was a debate a couple of weeks ago about Drake versus Black Thought from the Roots, and there was these young kids were like, who is Black Thought, right?
Right.
And for me, I mean, people were just ripping this kid after that, reminding them who Black Thought is. But I just saw him before we came on. He was with this new guy. He goes by the name of Toby Ngwe or Inwe or something like that. It's a Nigerian last name, but he's out of Texas, and he's definitely attuned to the culture. So they do have a handful of folks out there still doing their thing, grassroots, and trying to stay away from all of the auto tune and everything. To your point, John.
John says Beyonce did the Fort Big digital release with Lemonade. True. That's true. I just think, hey, John, I think that's the fact that it's Beyonce.
Right.
And everyone doesn't have the budget that a Beyonce has. So you got a lot of these artists, that were on the come up that are, I don't know. There's next to no promotion for any of their work. Now, I was going to segue, but I was going to segue to say, have you been watching Versus?
I watched a few of them.
What's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on that type of setup? You like? You don't like? There's things you would change. How would you make it better?
If they had their own platform, if they didn't have to use Instagram, that would be great. Because you kind of limited. In my opinion, you got to go to Instagram. I mean, they do post the links and stuff from Twitter or to Twitter and stuff like that, but it's really kind of encapsulated within Instagram. So if they could kind of take it out of that and just have it where it's all encompassing, where you didn't have to look at your phone to watch the verses. You could maybe stream it to your television or something like that, where you can kind of kick back, with your friends and family, check it out. That would be cool. But as far as how the pandemic has kind of like reshaped things, it's a new venue, for people to be able to get access to some of their favorite artists and see them in a different light, So I don't, even when, we start to get back to normal, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep that going.
What's your thoughts this weekend on Ghostface versus Raekwon?
Now, man, you've been knowing me for many years, so the Wu is close to my heart, brother. I'm a Southern boy, but I'm very familiar with 36 Chambers on up, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. I know these guys are brothers. They started out together. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Who would be the equivalent in the Dirty South that you would want to see, like a versus that you would want to see of two people that have been so intertwined with each other, kind of like Ray and Ghost?
The first person that came to mind was Big Boy and Dre from Outkast.
Okay.
But I don't think they have catalogs separate from each other where they can really make it worthwhile. Let's see. Besides that, man, I'm really kind of drawing a blank as far as like two people that kind of came up together, but like maybe 8Ball and MJG, or something like that. Some cats like that, 8Ball and MJG, and some other old school cats like Scarface or something. It'd be nice to see, some of them old school cats do a versus and play their hits for us,
Gotcha. Tony D just chimed in. He must have just stepped out. He said Andre 3000 gets Big Boy.
Yeah, that'll be dope. Now that'll be dope. The two legends.
So
they put Atlanta on the map.
That's true. So I guess I want to talk about governors. I have a governor in New York that's under scrutiny for some of his indiscretions in regards with sexual harassment, and also with, as we would say back in, if we were watching The Wire, juking the stats on the nursing home deaths. And that is Andrew Cuomo. And you have a governor in Florida, Ron DeSantis, who is a wild cowboy, Trump Jr. or mini Trump. What's happening in your town with your governor?
Well, he hasn't gotten caught up in any sexual harassment, but what he has gotten kind of, the spotlight on is the vaccination distribution here. The wealthiest communities in Florida are getting access to the vaccines before even the folks that's 65 and up. have been able to get access to the vaccine. So that's definitely been kind of controversial. Where people in his neighborhood where he lives down in the Keys all got vaccinated. So several other very affluent Florida neighborhoods all got access to vaccines before some of the less privileged folks were able to get access to that. And so that's one thing that's been going on with him. And it's so funny how there was fighting uh, about whether or not the previous guy won or not. And now this, American, I guess they call it American Rescue Plan is passed, and that means Florida's gotten some money. So
Right.
now, he's promising to, spend the money a certain kind of way. I said, so it's funny. You didn't want this guy, but you're gonna take the money and still try to
Yes,
make it
of
look
course. And
like
you and you got to speak ill of him.
right, right. So that's what's going on down here in Florida, man. But your guy up there, he's definitely getting much more press.
My guy up here, I mean, it's a shame because we sit back, we think of all the good things that he did or supposedly did during during COVID. I'm just looking for something on my phone that was just looking for something on my phone. Hang on one second, because I thought it was something that was great. Um, and I said this on my last podcast that I did. Oh, the podcast from 2 weeks ago that I did with Richie V. Hang on one second. I said, unfortunately, that we look at the situation with Andrew Cuomo, and we remember every day him on TV. We remember every day him giving a speech about COVID when things hit really hard in New York. We were the epicenter of the world, and you had governors from all over the place looking at us, wondering what was what. And he was kind of like that beacon of hope and beacon of light that people needed, because at the time we weren't really getting that type of leadership from the Oval Office. So he would go out there and he would give you facts, and he would separate it with giving you his opinion. Somewhere down the line, I don't know how you can go so right and then go so wrong at the same time. And we go from the daily pressers to now numbers being misconstrued on purpose. The fact of the matter, and then the other scandal is with him not keeping his hands to himself, allegedly, with him abusing his power, allegedly, with him just not acting like the leader of a state. So I think, all in all, he's put himself in a situation where the assembly in New York is primarily Democrat. So your own party wants to push you out. Usually we notice, the opposing party wants to push you out, but when your own party, and when senators and, you even had the president commenting on it tonight. So it's all types of wrong. It's all types of bad. And what made it even worse, what made it a mockery, Hezi, was the fact that this guy would hop on his brother's show on CNN, and it would be a gab fest.
Mm-hmm.
and it really just made a mockery. And you look back to his book deal, you look back to, your great leadership and you handling these numbers and mitigating the loss in New York of the elderly, the seniors. He was able to profit and get a book deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think ultimately, I don't think it's the sexual harassment that does him in. I think what does him in is the book deal. The book deal and the lies that allowed him to get that book deal. That's what's going to do him in. The other stuff is kind of, you hate to say it's the cherry on the top, but, so your governor, I could see him as being a player in 2024.
Definitely. He's positioning himself, in those in that circle, very I guess they're calling it the GQP now. It's not the GOP anymore. So in the GQP, that circle, he's definitely a rising star. Positioned himself potentially to make a run at the presidency. So we'll see. The thing that we really need to see, and we need a little more time to know how it's going to have an impact on the party is the what they call Trumpublicans, I guess, if you will. Is that still going to be hot going into 2024, especially with him not being on Twitter, being that voice that he has been, pretty much since 2012, 2013, when he kind of threw his hat into the political circle. Can these other people like DeSantis and, Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, folks like that, can they keep that going? My quick 2 cents on it is no, because they don't have the charisma, of Donnie. So we'll see. But with your guy up there in New York, man, the thing that really kind of bothers me the most is he's just not. He doesn't have the level of contrition that you would think somebody should have for all
There's
of these.
No remorse.
Yeah,
There's no remorse.
Just like, this is cancel culture and all that kind of stuff. And maybe to a certain extent, some of it is, but I really feel like I don't know if he's going to resign, but I don't think he's going to get reelected. That's just my 2 cents.
What's your thoughts on cancel culture as a whole?
I mean, I was gonna say I don't know. I'm not really sure if it's a thing. Really, it's more of well, it is a thing. It is a thing. Like the problem with it is just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. If that makes any sense, right? So just because I'm triggered by whatever, it doesn't mean I'm right, and you got these social justice warriors on both sides of the house. They get triggered and they say, all right, we're not going to, buy anything from this place anymore, or, we're not going to buy any records from this person or watch this person's TV show anymore or whatever. It does work to a certain extent, but I think it's gotten so far out of control where there is no balance, no due process. There's no, okay, let's wait and see how things go. And that's kind of what you're kind of looking at right now with Cuomo, because if you remember Northam down in Virginia, when he got into his situation with the blackface, and he didn't resign, and he's still there, and he's doing his thing. So, I guess you can take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, well, I just think nowadays the GOP were always to the point of, hey, I'm not resigning. And you run into a Democrat or an independent, and once the party tells them to resign, they're out. I noticed that with Northam about a year or year and a half ago, I noticed that about him, his lieutenant governor, who was in some type of scandal similar to Cuomo, and I think like their attorney general, like all three of them had scandals in Virginia, and no one resigned. Everyone said resign, resign, resign. They said no, I'm not doing it. And you go back to thinking about so John said it was one thing with Northam. Okay. Well, it's multiple things with Cuomo.
Definitely.
I'll tell you that much, John. It's multiple things, but I'm just, you do something. There was an issue, and I guess it's based on what you're doing or the issue that the people have with you. Because I think if you show a bit of remorse, I mean, Cuomo, there's no remorse at all. There's no contrition. There's no remorse. There's nothing at all.
But the funny thing about that is, they've done polls with people, constituents, and there isn't really any overwhelming, push from everyday people for him to resign. It's more political, people from that's already elected, that's asking him to resign. But like everyday New Yorkers are like, we just gonna wait and see what the investigation says.
Right. Because it gets to a point on, okay, do we wait for the investigation, or have you seen enough? Have enough people come forward? I mean, because we're told to believe the women. Believe women. This is what they're saying. They're saying, and if X amount are coming out to say, I've had this interaction, I've had that interaction, okay? And you wait for these independent investigators. Doesn't it become his word versus theirs?
Yeah, I mean, and this would definitely, if we had a famous show, maybe get me canceled. But it's, it's something. So you have to kind of be objective and wait and see, because you don't know if this is necessarily a political hit job or is this, legitimate. He clearly doesn't have many allies.
No, he has none.
So people are really trying to push to try to get him out, but maybe they're doing this because that's the only way that they can, have somebody else have a shot at being governor, because if they don't do it via the ballot box, they don't feel like they have a strong chance. So maybe they're pushing now to see if he'll resign, but he's dug in, brother.
Has I got a special guest?
I see that.
Guys.
My main man.
The only Saints fan I get along with in the United States of America.
And the only Falcons fan I get along with.
We got Danny Thompson in the building. Danny, before we get started, John, you're correct. Al Franken resigned over a picture where he was pretending to, well, we remember the picture.
Right.
And the woman was asleep, and he resigned. And you had Gillibrand, you had everyone else stating that he needs to resign. So it's the difference between two parties. But we got Danny Thompson in the building. Danny, what's going on?
I mean, I'm sorry I'm late, fellas. I had a last minute press engagement before I jumped in tonight. So I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm glad to be in the building with Hez Well, main man Hezekiah Walker down in Florida, man. This is like reunion time all over again. I get the warm and fuzzy feeling.
Yes, sir.
BSS reunion, man. Like I was just saying, Danny, before we got started, the last time that I saw Ted was when we were all actually together downtown Orlando, and that has been a little minute since that we all saw each other in person.
Yeah, no, and now we're doing this. We're doing this live in 3 different cities now, so it's like it's all great. It's all great. So
it definitely is. I had the pleasure. I think was it a year? No, it wasn't last year because last year was COVID. 2 years ago, to connecting with you two in Orlando, and I wanted to thank you guys for taking the time out that evening to hang out with me, to hang out in downtown Orlando. It meant a lot for you guys because I know, everyone's living different lives. To reconnect and just laugh, joke, and see the craziness out there in Orlando. Big shout out to Precious Sherrod is in the building. As always, Danny's first lady. Very supportive. 2 topics I got here for both of you gentlemen. I'll start off with, since Hezzy, you are the guest, but but our special guest, Danny Thompson, he's also the senior vice president of the LeBron James fan club.
No doubt.
What were you doing the minute that you heard LeBron became a partner with the Fenway Sports Group, Danny?
I mean, at least he didn't buy like the Yankees or something, so he could continue the front runnership of this. But no, it's a great day to see not just LeBron do it, but a man or a person of color, especially African American man, and his team buy a part of not just a baseball team, not just any single team, one of the most famous and franchises you're going to find in baseball. And to get in that billionaire boys club, no matter what the percentage is, it's still something special. And now he owns part of a baseball team and an English Premier League team. So that just proves the wild in the long stretch of LeBron James. And you got to think he also helped Renee Montgomery buy the Atlanta Dream. So it's just like LeBron opened doors not just for himself, but he's opening for everybody else. But when I heard he bought the Red Sox, I'm like, man, couldn't he help the Mets out or something here? We have the star power in New York with Lindor, at least.
It doesn't amaze me with him. I remember like almost 10 years ago, we were laughing and joking about LeBron being on the Heat, going back and forth. And of course, I'm razzing you because, you being a big LeBron fan. But the way he's moved in these last 10 years, very, very impressive. I'm going to say this much. He's going to be an NBA minority owner within 1 year of retirement. Within 5 years of retirement, he's going to be a majority owner. Not so bold prediction or bold prediction?
Who was that for, Danny?
Either both of you.
Hez goes first because he lost Drew Brees this week. So since he's in mourning, let him go ahead and go first.
Yeah, it's dark days in New Orleans. I would say that he is definitely on pace to be, a minority owner. I think if Danny, can also back me up here, I believe he's expressed the desire to want to be an NBA owner. So I really do believe it's only a matter of time. I mean, he's definitely on pace to be a billionaire athlete, in the next couple of years. So I definitely think he's on pace to become an NBA owner. I would love to see him become a majority owner like Michael and Charlotte. But I do think he's on track for that.
Danny?
It's going to happen. I don't know within 5 years because we don't know the landscape of the NBA and who is selling at that point. With the prices going up, I'm not saying LeBron's going to have it, not going to have it, but you don't know who's going to be selling. And I think LeBron's going to pick and choose where he really wants to own. I don't think it's just owning any team. He's going to own the right team. And to me, it'd be great for him to buy the Cleveland Cavaliers. It really would be. Yeah. You know, not only did you cleared the curse of the city of Cleveland, now the man that cleared the curse is now bought the team that he cleared the curse for. I think it'd be the great way to finish it off. But I think, LeBron could buy the Kings tomorrow, but that doesn't mean he's going to do it, But 5 years, I would say within 10, only because LeBron's very calculated with everything he does.
Okay. Hey, so Danny, you touched on it briefly. We're going to close this out with the NFL. Hezzy, I want to give you the floor. With the Saints, with Drew Brees, with him finally moving on. I know there were so many jokes a few weeks ago when there was word came out that Brees was coming back for another season. And, he was getting clowned on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us what Drew Brees, your favorite team, your city, what Drew Brees means to New Orleans?
Oh man! In one short word, I would say hope. I remember, watching my city, be devastated after Hurricane Katrina. And, the Saints have always been, a part of the city's culture, even though previous to Drew Brees' arrival, they were known as the Aints. People coming to games with paper bags on their heads and stuff like that. We had a couple of quarterbacks named Billy Joe Tolliver and Billy Joe Hobart. So it was definitely some dark days back in those days. But when Drew came, when he fell into our laps after the Dolphins declined his physical, he fell into Sean Payton's hands. Wow, man, talk about magic, in the making. And that first game that they were able to play in the Dome was actually against Danny's Falcons. And they whipped them real good. And that was really for us, outside of us always wanting to win against the Falcons, it was really kind of like a sign of the city is on the way back. And Drew, not only, he wasn't just a quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. He became a part of the community of New Orleans. He was always seen throughout the city, doing things for people. He's put millions of dollars in charity, in the city. And then, to cap it all off, he did give us a Super Bowl, So Drew Brees, like I said, man, he wasn't always, perfect along the way. I know he had a little misstep when it came to the kneeling situation when it comes to the players and stuff like that. But overall, as a person and as a man, as a player, Drew Brees, man, he was the man, and he'll definitely be missed in that uniform, and they'll be missing seeing number 9 coming out there on Sundays.
Who's your quarterback next season? Taysom Hill or Famous Jameis?
We're back to the Billy Joe days now. I think it's gonna be Jameis. To be honest with you, I was really, tossing my hat in the ring for Russell Wilson. I don't know if that's going to happen, but doesn't look like it's going to happen. So it's most likely probably going to be Jameis Winston.
Are you happy, sad, or indifferent?
Well, I mean, he is the number 1 overall pick, but that ain't saying much. The year before he was in Tampa, he did throw for 5,000 yards, but he is a turnover machine on top of that. So I don't know if with all of this extra time and him and Sean working together, if he can cut down on some of those turnovers. If he can do that, then it may not be too bad in New Orleans. But if not, I think they're going to be either looking towards the draft or trying to pull off some kind of trade because now that New Orleans is used to being a winning franchise, the Saints. I don't think the fans are really going to want to go back to the Aints days. They want to continue to compete. So the pressure is going to be on Sean Payton to really bring in somebody that can help him keep pace because, Tampa Tom Brady just re-signed for what, 4 years? And they're bringing back the whole team. So Tampa is strong, man.
Danny, what's your parting shots on Drew Brees? What he in I guess in the form of competition of being in your division, you facing him at least twice a year. Your thoughts on him?
There's two types of hats you have to wear in situations. The Falcons hat as a fan, because you watched Drew Brees for what it felt like ions of years, because we used to beat the Saints consistently and pretty regularly before Drew got there. And to have Drew literally pick apart our defense, and not only to what Hezzy's point was, he elevated a franchise, he made them relevant, and he wasn't the biggest guy on the field. He wasn't the prototypical 6'5" quarterback. He was probably the smallest guy in the league, but he was the most lethal with his arm, and as from a sports fan perspective, I mean, he's going to leave the game as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play in the game. He won the Super Bowl. So he will never have that stigmatism of being a guy that just didn't get it done. I had a chance to talk to Drew at the last Pro Bowl in Orlando. And ironically, I have a picture of Drew in my back catalog. And right before I took the picture, ironically, the lady who was my camera person a week at the Pro Bowl, she was a Saints fan. So I had to hear it all week. So as we're taking the photo, she yells out, "Now Danny's a Falcons fan." And he says, "Oh, I'm sorry." We had this little laugh. And, he was like, it's really big of you as a Falcons fan to take a picture with a Saint. I'm like, it is big, but you're a different type of New Orleans Saint. You're one of the Saints I respect on this team. And no, he's the ultimate competitor. I didn't, as much as I don't want to see the Saints win, I hated his last game was that way it was. You wanted to see him go out with guns blazing, whether it was win or lose. But outstanding player, outstanding human being, very friendly. I remember he stayed on the final day of practice an hour signing autographs and taking pictures of almost every single Saints fan in Orlando at Disney that day. And he made sure that every kid or every adult walked away with a smile. So, he's just a good guy. Like I said, he had missteps with, the kneeling situation, then everything with Donald Trump, but he's human. We all make mistakes. We all have our things. And no, I respect Drew. I really do respect him. But now, since Captain Crab Legs is quarterback, they can go back to being last place in the division now. So, sorry, Hezzy.
I will say this much. I think it's golden. It's, what? It's kind of sad, I'm going to say, in my perspective, that the news leaked so early that, potentially this was going to be his last season, and that he had already signed a deal with NBC while they were getting ready to, to head towards the playoffs. I wish that news hadn't come out because, I don't know. I guess I kind of want that suspense. Well, is he coming back? Is he not? And like when the news dropped, I'm like, oh yeah, it makes sense. He's going to be an analyst. He's going to work, college football, and he's going to be the succession plan for Chris Collinsworth. And I think both of those opportunities and however else they want to shoehorn him in on Sunday Night Football is going to be great. For me, standing on the outside, in a totally different division, that I think that the stuff that he did for his community stands tall. The misstep is the misstep. I think the minute he finally understood, what his players were talking about, then he was on board with it, and then he totally understood. He's definitely going to be missed. He's definitely going to be missed, but it's time. We're seeing the changing of the guard. Last question will go to Danny. Danny, what's your thoughts on March Madness?
Oh man, March Madness is my favorite time of year. I can't wait for Thursday night. We get the 4 games on Thursday, 68 teams with 67 games. It's the most interesting NCAA tournament of all time, and there's the factor that we don't know about, which is COVID. We don't know what COVID can do in this tournament. They're the one team in the bracket that nobody has an answer for. So we saw referees go down. Referees were the first ones to get with COVID because Ted Valentine and a bunch of the crew members were whisked away from Indianapolis. I think it was Monday, and they're without some of the top officials. We saw Jerry Auriemma on the women's side not coaching UConn during the tournament either. So we don't know what's going to happen with COVID. But as far as what's going to be on the court, you know what? In a tournament where you don't know outside of Gonzaga who's going to be able to beat Gonzaga, I cannot wait for tip-off on Thursday.
We'll close with Hezzy. Final thoughts? Welcome to Haps. Hope that you come back.
Yeah, man. I've seen Danny, I've seen Richie V, I've seen the great infamous Bucko Bruce, and a few other folks, that have come on the platform, and it definitely is promising. I'm glad that I had a chance to catch up with you, and Danny was definitely a nice surprise as well, and I'm definitely looking forward, man, to coming back and us talking up some more stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Seems like old times. It seems like a Wednesday night. It seems like 9 p.m. Eastern time. Two of my favorite people that I get to talk with. Hezzy, definitely, you got to come back on the platform. You're always welcome for Late Night Parents. You know that much. Danny, final thoughts?
I mean, it was when the bat signal came and I heard that the great Hezzy was on the show tonight. I'm like, I got to stop through. So we scheduled it. As soon as LaMelo Ball's press conference ended, I zoomed right over here. So
appreciate you.
Always, bro. It's family. It's love.
Definitely. So, Hezzy, I would love to make this a monthly thing. I'm going to start off by saying monthly, and then we can work you into bi-weekly for at least a 30-minute set. But we shall see. So I'm going to start off by saying monthly or bi-monthly. You got to make sure you come back.
Definitely. Let's make it happen.
All right. That's good. We didn't get deep into the realms of the BSS Bible, some of the old shows and old skits and stuff that we used to talk about. We'll save that for next time. Danny, as always, you're a great follow. Since I got you right here, tell us about the NBA show. Danny's going to be hosting an NBA show. I guess the date is to be determined.
Listen, I mean, it'll be on before Dr. Dre's Detox album is released. Okay, well, we're going to do it before then. All right. There have been a few hiccups in the delay of the show, of the NBA show, because of really the scheduling of the NBA season. The Hornets kind of became good, and now they're on national TV and playing on different days than normal. So the NBA show is coming. It's going to start before the playoffs. But on the other side, I do have a March Madness show tomorrow. Since the brackets are officially locked tomorrow, I want to say 6 p.m. I'm going to do a show breaking down and actually picking my bracket on air.
What time is the show?
The Hornets will play at 9 o'clock tomorrow night, so I will jump on Haps around 8:30 tomorrow night before Hornets tip off at 9. So that way I'm going to do 30 minutes, break down my bracket. Like I said, that way you guys can literally see my bracket on air. And then when Thursday gets here and my bracket's destroyed by midday Saturday, you guys know where to find me on that one.
Gotcha. Well, I definitely want to thank both of you. Much love to you. Platform is always open. We shall talk again. Ways to follow the show is latenightparents.com, and we are out.